So this is going to be a review for the horror movie Fright Night, the original one, not the remake, which I haven't unfortunately made it out to see this past weekend. I'm going to try and catch it next weekend. After I got through with the X-Men reviews, I'm going to go through this and Fright Night 2. Probably just do this one today because I have to be off to work in a little bit, and I'll try and fit in Fright Night 2 tomorrow along with Waxwork, which I watched last night, and if I can watch Waxwork 2 tonight, I'll go ahead and review all three of those tomorrow. Anyways, this movie. Fright Night, I think, definitely stands out as probably one of the best remembered horror comedy movies of the 80s. With me personally, it's not really so much of a horror movie anymore because the scare factor that I might once have had with this when I was a kid isn't there, but that doesn't mean I still can't go and have a good time with this. The story's pretty simple. We got this cat named Charlie Brewster that lives with his mother. He's a senior in high school, and he's got a new neighbor that moves in next door to him who he thinks is a serial killer, and it kind of plays on that old Alfred Hitchcock movie about a guy seeing a killer from the window, and then the killer winds up being a vampire. And, you know, it just goes completely crazy, but yet still pretty fucking fun from there. The movie is just flat out great. There is some good character stuff that takes place in this too, but it's really the horror factor that comes into this as well. The entire movie is a nod back to the 50s and I'd say maybe the iconic Dracula movie and some of the Hammer vampire films, along with this old television show called Fright Night, which they kind of roll a lot of this into one. Like, if George Lucas rolled his love of westerns and a little bit of horror movies and samurai films into Star Wars, this is pretty much what's done with the horror movie stuff that's come before, but it's a nice update to it first time. Charlie Brewster is hilarious in this movie. His girlfriend, not really that interesting to me until she's turned into a vampire, which, slight spoiler, that does happen. The late Roddy McDowall, awesome as Peter Vincent. And then we have Evil Ed, who, slight spoiler, also is Charlie's best friend, and he winds up becoming a vampire in this movie as well. He's a lot of fun in this movie as well, especially when his transformation takes place. And then he's got like this really irritating voice. It reminds me of something, and I can't really think of the name of the character right now, but best line he has throughout this movie: "Oh, you're so cool, Brewster." It's a terrible impression, but you get the idea. And he's like this really hyper kid, and like he becomes even more insane when he's the vampire. Dinner's in the oven. And I like that character a lot. As far as a lot of the supernatural tropes, like, it's funny as you go through this movie and then like everybody's convinced that Charlie's going crazy, and then Peter Vincent shows up to the house with Jerry Dandridge to, you know, prove once and for all to Charlie that he's not a vampire. But then there's a little trick that happens that, you know, Peter catches a glimpse of, you know, hey, the fact that Jerry really is a fucking vampire, and he gets freaked out by it. And it's just great. I do have a couple of qualms with this movie, however. One is that, well, it isn't really so much of a qualm, and it's not really a spoiler, but just a lot of the tropes with the vampire, like, you do have, like, realistic tropes that could take place in this, like simple stuff like a bite on the neck that does happen. A lot of the supernatural stuff in this movie doesn't happen until probably the last 35 to 40 minutes of this movie. Transformation scenes, decomposition scenes, prosthetic makeup, and then this really awesome demonic vampire bat that Charlie has to fight at the end of the movie, which is awesome. The only other thing that I'm curious about is they didn't entirely elaborate on Jerry's familiar. I can't remember what his name was, but he's like his human watchdog, and the way that he dies like a vampire. And they didn't really elaborate on, if he's some kind of a ghoul. I mean, we know he's a familiar, but we don't really know what type of supernatural creature he is, and the way that he meets his destruction towards the end of this movie, it looks pretty good, but it wasn't really explained. That's my only two qualms with the movie that I have to nitpick. Aside from that, this is a really good film. I do say I recommend stuff a lot, but this one I recommend you check out. If you've seen the first one, or seen the remake, and it was probably less than what your expectations might have been, go back and check this movie. It's available on DVD. It's a fairly decent price at any video store, and just check it out. I'd actually say buy this movie too. I guarantee you'll have a hell of a ride with it.